and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum, and I'm gay.
We know, Andy. But thank you for reminding us. I'm Ann Northrup.
It's Pride Month, and LGBTQ commemorations of the Stonewall Rebellion are breaking out all over, from World Pride down in D.C. and small towns in the U.S. to countries where it is legally banned.
Yes, there's a panoply, a panorama, and we'll run through some of them. For instance, the U.S. Postal Service is celebrating Pride with LGBTQ icons and rainbows.
A federal judge has blocked Trump's ban on gender-affirming care in prisons.
Excellent news. But Dr. Oz, you remember him, is on the warpath against gender-affirming care in prisons.
No, for young people.
Oh, I'm sorry. I conflated two headlines.
Right.
Yes, for young people.
Pete Hegseth, remember him? He marked Pride Month by ordering a naval vessel be stripped of the name of a gay icon.
And maybe half a dozen more.
Civil rights leaders.
Yes. White House press secretary goes on an anti-LGBTQ attack on Harvard.
Trans cadets were allowed to graduate at the Air Force Academy, but they were denied their commissions.
Really amazing how they're twisting themselves into knots. A case for Donald Trump's task force on anti-Christian discrimination by Donald Trump.
Overall support for same-sex marriage in the United States, despite all that's happening, is holding steady while dropping among Republicans.
So it must be rising among others.
Yes.
Okay. Actor Jonathan Joss of TV's King of the Hill and a lot of other shows was shot dead in a homophobic attack.
Public LGBTQ gatherings are banned in Hungary, but 70 members of the European Union Parliament will join those defying that ban.
And we lost a gay literary giant, Edmund White, this week, who died at the age of 85.
A major victory for lesbian couples in Italy.
Pride parades in the UK are banning political parties because they haven't stood up for trans rights.
The NIH cancels future funding plans for HIV vaccine, the vaccine consortia. Wow.
Well, they're just attacking it from every angle. But coming up on PBS on June 20th is a documentary we've been waiting for. It's been playing the film festivals. Janice Ian, Breaking Silence. It's gotten great reviews.
And an East Village street in New York was co-named for an iconic gay playwright, and I was there.
Okay.
And we'll talk about it. So World Pride in D.C.
I don't get to give a medical update?
Oh, please.
He doesn't care anymore.
No,
he used to ask, how are you?
What was the first thing I said when I sat down? How are you?
But not on air.
All right, let's go. I don't know if I want to talk about all my stuff right now.
You feel free if it can be informative to the public.
Sure.
I started radiation treatments this week, so, very easy at first. It's just 10 minutes at a time. They predict you'll get more fatigued as you go along, and your skin will start to get burned, so you have to keep up with moisturizing it a couple of times a day.
What does it feel like while it's happening?
Nothing.
Nothing.
But you have to hold when I'm having it here, which is where I'm having it, I have to hold my breath periodically. They say breathe in, and then you have to hold it for about 40 seconds before they say breathe out, because they want me to separate the chest from the heart. That's a little scary. But
and so afterwards, you felt a little tired, but...
I did, but I went back to the gym for the first time in 2 months since my surgery, and that made me feel a little tired. I think my trainer was trying to make up for lost time. But it's so important, that's really the point I want to make today, to stay in shape. My doctors have told me all along that I'm doing really well in recovery, that I'm in good shape. And I know it's because I've been going to the gym twice a week for 2.5 years. And that has made me strong and healthy, relatively, aside from the tumor in my breast, and has helped me get through this recovery period more easily. So I, 2.5 years ago, just generally felt like my strength was deteriorating, I was aging, and I didn't like that feeling, and I wasn't ready to give up. So I thought, it's time finally to go to the gym, which I hadn't ever done before, and it has turned out to be a great boon for this. So that's my little piece of advice today, aside from always, please get yourself checked. More and more I'm hearing about people who are getting themselves checked, finding some things, not finding others, but really check yourself and stay in just general good health.
We're glad you're here, aren't we, audience? Yes, we are.
Except when I get distracted with the headlines. All right, let's launch. Do you have anything you want to?
I've been in agony all week over an inflamed rotator cuff, but I got a nice shot in it, and I hope it's healing.
Good.
All right. So World Pride is underway in Washington, D.C. They are going to have D.C. Pride, the regular Pride Parade, on Saturday, and the International World Pride March on Sunday there. We will not be there, but we will be reporting on it.
No, and I guess we should point out that for World Pride, they are going to be, they're all over D.C. They've been doing it for a week now. They finished up their big sports competition. But the D.C., or the Park Service,
Federal,
wanted to shut down DuPont Circle.
They did.
For safety reasons. I was there when they were running tanks around DuPont Circle while we were having an anti-Vietnam War demonstration. That was in 1970 or 71.
My God, how old are you?
Very. And the public objected, and the local politicians objected, and they actually got the Park Service and the cops to back down and keep DuPont Circle open and agree that no, just because a bunch of homos were going to be in town was not a reason to shut down DuPont Circle.
The federal government involvement in anything these days is a curse, basically, because it's a fascist government. I mean, I used to be on the Board of Advocates for Youth, which is about teen sexuality and things, and they just said, we're foregoing $1.2 million in federal funding. We don't want the money. We don't want any. We're not going to agree to any restrictions. What we do.
Yeah.
And look, I've floated out there. I don't know how you all feel about it. Do we really want federal designation for the Stonewall area, given the fact that they won't even mention trans people? That's something for us to consider. Share your thoughts.
And I think we should be cautious about corporate support, because they are, it's nice to have people like you and give you money, but they give so much more money to right-wing politicians. And this is just covering that up. And we ought to be clearer about that.
At Gay USA, we do not take any government or corporate funding. We rely on you, our viewers, and also our friends at Broadway Cares to support us. And so if you want to support us, go to gayusatv.org. And we have a little donation thing, and we'd appreciate your Pride donation.
And you can be sure that we are not contaminated by any support from the federal government.
No, we would never bend. Or the state or local governments.
Whatever.
Right.
Well, some of them may support Manhattan Neighborhood Network.
Among the Pride events on Friday, June 6th, Human Rights Campaign and a bunch of other groups are going to have a rally for Andre Jose Hernandez Romero, the gay Venezuelan makeup artist who was put into the gulag in El Salvador by Trump. This is going to be led by Congressman Mark Takano, who heads the Congressional Equality Caucus.
Unfortunately, Shakira had to drop out of being the headline opening act for World Pride. Problems with her set when she was set up in Boston the day before and couldn't move the production to D.C.
And by the way, the Department of Health and the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, that monster, was asked on behalf of Andre's mother to confirm whether or not he's alive in this prison. And she refused to respond.
Not my business, not my responsibility. He's in another country now.
I'm Pontius Pilate. I wash my hands of it. All right. And then Andre was, and we're going to show this picture, an honorary grand marshal at the Queen's Pride Parade this Sunday to draw attention to his case.
That's not Andre.
That's not Andre. Come on, the person holding the sign. With Andre, you must have it.
Well,
there.
let's go to Queen's Pride. You were there.
There it is.
Yeah.
They made Andre honorary grand marshal.
Nice.
And it's the most diverse county in the country, and they have the most diverse Pride Parade. So let's flip through the pictures. Our Attorney General, Tish James, was there. She's the one suing Trump all the time, and he's going after her. There's Queen's Pride. Keep flipping. And here's a bunch of kids from the Drag Story Hour in New York City. And then we have a lot of Latino groups there that were there. And trans people will always exist was a big banner. And then this gentleman was holding a sign that says, protect Black and Brown LGBTQ asylum seekers. So that cause was there. Now, this was not a protest march. No. It was a parade.
Yeah.
There were only a few protest signs.
Well, but those signs are all in protest of what's going on.
Most of it is just contingents. It's quite diverse. But, we're going to be having the Queer Liberation March in New York, which is just a protest march. And that's what we're about. And we'll be marching sooner on June 14th on No King's Day around the country. Just Google No King's Day and your city, June 14th, and find out where to go.
Queer Liberation March, June 29th, and the Drag March two nights before on Friday, the 27th.
And a friend of mine sent me a note about how in suburban Croton-on-Hudson, up there in Westchester, they had their first Pride March. They raised the flag. This was at the end of a community march. And the mayor, who is Mayor Brian Pugh, there on the right, with my friend Chad, saying many institutions have abandoned pride. Croton-on-Hudson will not be one of them. And again, this is important. And, we'll talk about World Pride, but I think it's great that all these things are happening in all these little cities all across the country.
Sure, because it's those events that energize people to get involved in organizations and the movement altogether.
When we started having national gay rights marches.
1979.
Well, I was there.
Me too.
And, it was so moving. And for some people, this was the only place they could march. They couldn't march in their hometown in Alaska. So they came to Washington and then they felt the solidarity. But now they can march in Alaska.
Well, that's the thing. It is spread from those DC marches, organizations, marches, whatever. Politicians has all grown from that. In Montana, the Missoula City Council is following in the footsteps of Salt Lake and Boise, Idaho, and declaring the rainbow flag to be an official city flag of Missoula so they can fly it.
Because the state has banned pride flags on government buildings. So they
have mandated only official city flags can fly. So Missoula said, okay, we'll make the rainbow flag an official city flag.
And then in Florida, we have a picture here of the Acosta Bridge in Jacksonville lit up.
This is a great story.
In rogue rainbow colors because, again, the evil, wicked Governor DeSantis has banned anything but red, white, and blue on bridges.
Yeah, we told you that last week.
Our folks found a way to project rainbow colors. They tried to do it on another bridge.
The Main Street Bridge, and this happened last year too. They were going to do it on the Main Street Bridge. The Main Street Bridge is a bridge that opens, that separates, so ships can come through. And the city opened the bridge to stop this, and the LGBTQ activists and allies said, fine, we're going to the next bridge, the Acosta Bridge, and they lit it up beautifully. That was a gorgeous, gorgeous picture.
And in Wisconsin, Governor Tony Evers ordered the pride flag to be flown over the state legislature as Republican lawmakers were voting to ban rainbow flags from government buildings or schools. He says, we're not going to stop. And Republicans criticized the flying of the rainbow flag as divisive. Who's being divisive?
Yeah, I mean, even Loyola University in Chicago, a Jesuit university, is celebrating Pride.
And also in Wisconsin, after years of flying the rainbow pride flag, the Wisconsin Historical Society won't raise it this year. Oh, we're a nonpartisan agency. The society does not participate in advocacy outside of that mission. So we've chosen not to raise any flags anymore. They've been flying it since 2019, but now it's a fearful fascist country. They say we're still committed to sharing gay stories.
This constant redefining of LGBTQ acknowledgement as advocacy is infuriating.
Yes, just saying we're gay to a lot of people is, well, you're engaging in advocacy. Just saying who you are, but that's what this movement is all about.
In Long Island here, in Mineola, they held a big trans rights rally.
Yeah, this is the first one, and it's, of course, against the horrible Bruce Blakeman, county executive. They had 200 people on the steps of the county legislative building, and one speaker said, "This is our Stonewall." This is Long Island, where I grew up. I went to high school in Mineola.
A relatively conservative place in parts.
Yes, it is.
But the governor, Hochul, is going after Blakeman in some ways. She's fighting him on some stuff.
I should hope so. She's our Democratic governor.
Yeah.
The United States Postal Service poster for Pride stamps. There it is. Happy Pride, it says, from the USPS. Now, join us in honoring the strength and authenticity of the LGBT community, past, present, and future, from artists to astronauts and everyone in between. Their impact knows no bounds. This is pretty bold from the Postal Service, since they're about to be folded by the Trump administration.
Well, they got rid of DeJoy. That was nice.
Yeah, they got rid of DeJoy.
For someone worse.
No,
right?
They appointed a board member of FedEx, who is obviously going to be interested in closing it.
Well.
But anyway, those stamps included Harvey Milk, Sally Ride, Isadora Duncan, an Ellsworth Kelly rainbow, and a painting by Emilio Sanchez.
They had the traditional flag raising and flag display at Stonewall Park here on Christopher Street, led by Stephen Love Menendez, who's been doing this for years. They put little this size flags on the fence all the way around Stonewall Park. Let's hope they survive for a while. They've been vandalized in the last couple of years. And Randy Wicker was there raising a big flag on the flagpole with Stephen.
Well, when they put the statue of what they called gay liberation in the park, well, all right, it's a gay male couple and a lesbian couple. But when we were advocating, it was a George Segal sculpture.
I know.
When they were advocating for it, people said it's going to be vandalized. Don't bring it into our community. I said, better they do it to the statues than to us.
It's very white.
Anyway, here's some good news. Federal District Court judge granted a preliminary injunction blocking the enforcement of the Trump executive order prohibiting the Bureau of Prisons from providing gender-affirming hormone therapy and accommodations to trans people. Doesn't cover surgical care, but this is a big breakthrough.
Yeah, for years this has been a controversy because traditionally for some years, trans prisoners have gotten medical care, as all prisoners get medical care, or should, or supposed to. So this was just in line with the medical care that everybody got. And then someone noticed and said, wait a minute, they're helping trans people. And
trans people, they don't exist, according to the federal government.
Right. So Trump tried to shut it down, but now a court has said, no, it is medical care.
And then what Dr. Oz is doing, he's in charge of Medicare and Medicaid now. He's really on the warpath against gender-affirming care for minors, and I assume he's going to be going after adults as well. They say terrible things. They're writing to all the hospitals, and we want to know what you're doing with these kids, and they have to respond within 30 days. Are you providing this kind of stuff? You're not allowed to do it. And of course, this is all, this kind of care is totally supported by the medical organizations.
And they're very sneaky in the federal government. What they're doing with these deported people is who are trying to get due process back here. They want to be brought here to have their trials for due process of whether or not they should be deported. The federal government has now gotten their asylum claims thrown out of court.
Yep.
So that they no longer have an excuse to come back to the country.
That's what happened to Andre.
Yes.
I mean, they just said, but these are these immigration judges. They'll do whatever Trump says.
Exactly.
That these are not, high courts.
They're one of the deportees is a guy known only by his initials, OCG, out gay. He's from Guatemala originally. He was abused in Guatemala. And on his way here, as he was seeking asylum, he was raped in Mexico. He was deported from the U.S. He got to the U.S., deported back to Guatemala, where he is in hiding. The U.S. said, we're sending you back to the country where you were abused. So he's now in hiding and afraid to leave his sister's house where he is staying.
What they're doing, I mean, of course, is so horrendous. I mean, they invaded Jerry Nadler's office, our congressman's office, and handcuffed one of his aides because they said you're harboring activists who are fighting this.
And you're resisting. This is the new law enforcement technique. No matter what you're doing, they just start yelling, stop resisting, stop resisting.
Yeah.
And no one is resisting.
Right.
They're just standing there being handcuffed. But this is the way they criminalize people.
But the thing is, people are showing up for their regular immigration appointments and just being handcuffed and deported. I mean, they're not being allowed to go through the process, which is legal. And of course, they cut off all these people from Haiti, Venezuela, fleeing persecution. Now we don't care. I mean, Trump used to be very anti-Venezuela, and now go back there.
Because Stephen Miller...
Because you're not white.
Stephen Miller is going to these ICE and Border Patrol people and screaming at them, you have to up your deportations or I'm going to fire you. He just threatens them.
So they put masks on when they do what they do so that you can't see the evil that they're doing.
And it's like they're being handed people on a platter because all they do is go hang out at the hearings offices and grab everybody.
In the Haitian neighborhoods, they're saying restaurants are closing, people can't show up for work, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on and on and on. It's become an extremely ugly country. All right, but over 100 celebrities, I don't know if this makes any difference anymore, signed an open letter with the Trevor Project begging the Department of Health and Human Services, please don't eliminate all the funding for 988 Suicide Crisis and Lifeline's LGBTQ Youth Special Services. Alan Cumming, Jamie Lee Curtis, Pedro Pascal, all these celebrities signed on.
Yeah, it's not going to do anything. Secretary, well,
don't
it's
say
not.
that. What does Ann Northrop always say? Everyone needs to do something. So,
I do say that. I think they should all go get arrested.
Okay.
The Secretary of Education, meanwhile, Linda McMahon, has taken on... there's this controversy over whether schools or teams or whatever should use Native American symbols as mascots, and for years that's been debated back and forth, and so on.
Like the Washington Redskins changed
was
their name.
Particularly offensive. So the state of New York...
Not the changing, the name.
Yes. The state of New York has a law describing the use of these symbols as discrimination and outlawing it. So the Trump administration has decided that they're going to come down on the side of using the symbols, that not to use them is discrimination against Native Americans.
Well, that's what they're into. They're into anti-majority kind of feeling, like anti-white discrimination. We're going to get to that. But of course, the story of the week was Pete Hegseth, this horrible person, ordered the Navy to take the rare step of renaming a ship, one that bears the name of Ensign Harvey Milk, a gay icon. They named a bunch of ships. It's called the John Lewis class, again, for civil rights leaders. And it's just,
and on the left there you see Harvey Milk in uniform, who served in the Korean War in the Navy, and on the right you see your current Secretary of Defense.
White supremacist. And of course the others are Thurgood Marshall, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Harriet Tubman, Dolores Huerta, Lucy Stone, Cesar Chavez, and Medgar Evers, and they're going after them.
Well, they're quite explicit about this as a rebuke of pride.
Yes, yes.
And everyone, all the border agents have been told, do not go to any event that is run by a service organization on behalf of any non-majority group.
They said you can do it on your own time, but we're not doing that stuff anymore.
All right, so I want predictions of what they will rename these ships.
Well, I guess they'll probably name one of them for Ashley Babbitt, who was shot and killed at the insurrection.
Could
and
be.
has already gotten her big settlement.
Yep.
And she's a big hero to these people. And that would make the whole idea is to make your head explode. People have become very upset about the Harvey Milk thing being taken away. We can't let our lives, our emotions, just be totally ruled by these fascists. We have to have our own way of promoting them.
Well, my guess for the renaming of the ships is that some of them will be named Ivanka, Donald Jr., Eric, maybe Tiffany, although she's not one of the favorites.
No.
But now that she's produced a grandchild, maybe she'll be on the list.
A whole navy.
None of the wives are going to get named. We won't see Stormy Daniels, but I think the kids may get. I think Don's going to Trump and say, "Daddy, I want a ship named after me."
Have they served?
Of course not. And maybe they're holding out for a battleship or an aircraft carrier.
Well, in the Trump war on Harvard, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said this: "The president is more interested in giving taxpayer money to trade schools and programs in state schools that are promoting American values, blah, 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 plumbers. We need more of those in our country and less LGBTQ graduate majors from Harvard University." Harvard doesn't have an LGBTQ major.
Well, they're not mutually exclusive.
But, some of it is covered in gender and women's and sexuality studies. But, it's just this anti-LGBTQ bigotry, which is constantly emanating. And, that makes it dangerous for us. You claim to care about the horrible things that are happening to Jews in this country, and it is something for us all to be concerned about. Although you've got the most anti-Semitic administration in history. Well, maybe not in history, but that would be going pretty far.
Yeah.
But it's very anti-Semitic in the Trump administration, and they don't really care about Jews at all.
No, they care about themselves. Another pride footnote, we showed you last week the raising of the rainbow flag outside the Embassy of Denmark in the District of Columbia. Well, both the German and Canadian embassies in D.C. are also celebrating Pride.
We love Canada. This was from the Queen's Pride Parade. The Canadians carried these heart symbols with the rainbows and the maple leaf.
Very nice.
And I thought, can I come to your country? It's all right. So 3 transgender senior cadets earned their diplomas from the Air Force Academy on Thursday. And there's Hunter Marquez, who's one of the 3. So they got their degrees in aeronautical engineering and math and all these kinds of things. But then they said, you're not getting your commissions in the Air Force.
I'm amazed they got their degrees.
But Hunter says, I really want to stay in for as long as possible and fight this out.
Yes.
Should we go to the track meet?
Sure. Yeah, you don't want to, okay, go to the track meet.
This is Trump's big, can't stop talking about anti-trans. He did it at the West Point. He does it all the time. So A.B. Hernandez, a transgender student athlete who was constantly cited by Trump.
California.
Tied for first place with 2 other students in her state's high school track and meet. And the opponents were all very supportive of her.
Well, this all started when AB won a couple of events at a previous track meet, and a couple of nasty parents got all upset about this and said this isn't fair. And Trump started using this as a whole campaign issue. Oh boy, I can really succeed with these anti-trans statements. But the state of California allows participation, so they came up with a new rule, which is trans students can play sports, but if they, first of all, if they are entered in a meet in an event, an equivalent number of cis participants will be entered into the event. So they're expanding the field. And then if the trans student wins, a play, first, second, third, whatever, then an equivalent cis participant who would have won if the trans student hadn't participated will also get a medal. So we had AB on the podium with two cis participants who were honored in that system.
And one of them, Brooke White, said, as a part of the queer community myself, I want AB Hernandez to know that we all have her back.
My mic clip.
Okay.
It's securing. I think it's just fallen under my shirt.
Okay. All right. Anyway, and an assistant coach at, now get this, Santa Margarita Catholic in Orange County said, everyone's supporting the athlete and coaching like normal business. We don't have any animosity towards her. It's only you people watching this on Fox News, basically. All right.
Yeah, well, I think they worked out a good system, and everybody seems happy with it.
Well, here's my favorite story of the week.
Okay.
Here's a case for Trump's. Remember, we talked about it. Trump's task force on anti-Christian discrimination includes many, many cabinet members, but this case it's discrimination by Donald Trump because he runs the Kennedy Center, and they fired Floyd Brown, who was making all these anti-gay statements, and he says, I'm being from my Christianity, my Christian views. He says, I didn't do this on the job. I posted about it. He called gay marriage a hoax and godless and all that stuff. But so are they going to take up his cause?
No, it's very situational. He was the vice president of development.
Subscriptions at the Kennedy Center, by the way, fell 36%
yeah,
in the previous
that.
year.
Yeah. Rick Grinnell fired him. He was a racist as well as a homophobe, and CNN uncovered his previous statements. Yeah.
Now, Trump says he fired the director of the National Portrait Gallery, Kim Sajet, S-A-J-E-T, citing DEI. And she's been director there for, 12 years. And he says, highly partisan person, strong supporter of DEI, totally inappropriate. But they're debating now at the Smithsonian because it's not run by the government.
Right.
They have our own board.
Yes.
Vance is on the board. Chief Justice Roberts is on the board, but they can't decide whether to fight it or not.
I know.
It's crazy.
Well, I assume they get government funding.
Oh, for this music, for the portrait gallery,
yep.
It's 2/3. It's not that much for all the others, but yes, most of the money is government money.
Yeah.
All right, national polling on same-sex marriage. There's now a record party divide. Republican support has dropped 14 points just since 2022. So for the Republicans, being anti-gay is like it now. But it's risen among Democrats and independents. So overall, it's a relatively stable 76%.
We were discussing last week the budget bill and whether Medicare funding is in jeopardy. And a viewer sent a note with the actual law, which is that if the deficit rises above a certain thing, Medicare funds will automatically be cut to a limit of 4% of Medicare.
Elon Musk is very upset about this. Well, he's condemned the bill.
Yeah. Well, and the government has decided to cancel all HIV vaccine research, saying that they will rely on current methods to end the epidemic, except that they've cut all of those too, all the treatment, and it's just ludicrous.
Right. In Texas, both chambers of the legislature passed a bill banning students from forming LGBTQ plus groups like GSAs. Now,
that's illegal, isn't it?
Exactly. There's a federal thing called the Equal Access Act. It was passed by right-wing Christians who said we want to have Christian prayer groups in schools, and that meant they also couldn't cut off LGBTQ groups.
Yeah, we've been over this for years, where Utah, I think, tried to stop an LGBTQ clubs, and you can't. If you allow any, you have to allow all.
Yes,
and that includes these. So Texas should not get away with that.
So, you know, we told you Jerry Connolly of Virginia died, was the head of the Oversight Committee. He was the head Democrat. So a bunch of our friends are running for it, including out Representative Robert Garcia of California and Jasmine Crockett, who we also love. And they're up against the old guys. So we'll see which direction the party takes.
A new study published by the Northeastern University Business School found that corporate boards that included LGBTQ members are more successful. The corporations are more successful the more diverse their boards are because, you get a diversity of opinions and input and information, and that helps you do business better. Crazy.
Well, I mean, they say that Trump's tariffs, which are being developed by a handful of people, is going to cost the country $2.4 trillion.
Yep.
It's insane.
Yeah.
All right. The Oklahoma State Superintendent of Public Instruction, the wicked Ryan Walters, we have a picture of him. He's got this new social studies curriculum that teaches conspiracy theories about the 2020 election and everything. But there's something called We're Oklahoma Education, or WOKE, is distributing a letter saying we're fighting this. We're not going to be doing this. And
well, they want to have kids be allowed, or their parents to be allowed, to opt them out of this education, which is highly ironic because historically opt-outs are for conservatives who want to take their kids out of sex education or discussions of race or sexuality or whatever.
They're calling what Walters is proposing is propaganda, and they're going to opt their kids out of that. Look, there were liberal parents who opted out of sex education because it was never taught properly in most schools.
The Walter curriculum also includes Christian fundamentalism lessons.
Okay.
Lovely. Good news from Puerto Rico, where the Supreme Court there has legalized the use of X markers on birth certificates by non-binary or gender non-conforming people who want to amend their birth certificates to have an X marker instead of an M or an F. And the Puerto Rico Supreme Court says, sure, go ahead.
All right. Should we talk about Jonathan Joss?
Sure.
Well, he's an actor, a voice actor on King of the Hill and other things. His husband,
and a lot of other credits.
His husband, Tristan Kern de Gonzalez, claims that he was the victim of a homophobic attack. He died on June 1st in San Antonio at the age of 59, fatally shot. Gonzalez...
By the next-door neighbor.
He says that our home was burned down after 2 years of threats from people in the area.
Yep.
So they were going back to recover something or something. And then this shooting happened. Now so national groups are demanding an investigation, find out what happened here.
Well, because they went back to find something at the house, and Joss got distraught at having to visit the burned down house, and the neighbor evidently got in an argument with him and pulled out a gun and shot him dead right there with the husband. In fact, Joss pushed his husband out of the way, and the husband says he saved my life. So the cops, and the guy confessed immediately and was arrested, but the cops said, there's no indication of a hate crime here.
But he's arrested for murder.
Yes, but everyone says the motive was homophobia.
Please. I mean, much of the harassment was openly homophobic.
Yeah, well, the cops are denying that.
Et cetera. All right. And then we remember telling you about the death of trans activist Cecilia Gentili just last year, I guess. Mm-hmm. And one of the two men who pleaded guilty in connection with the death because it was selling her bad drugs was sentenced to 19 years in prison on May 27th.
Heroin with fentanyl.
It was great. Look. The U.S. attorney, the interim U.S. attorney, Joe Nocella, Eastern District, a federal, post said Cecilia Gentili was tragically poisoned from fentanyl-laced heroin. And today those perpetrators are being held accountable, and we will be relentless against them. So they care about fentanyl, but at least they didn't stop caring because it was a transgender victim.
Well, they stopped caring in Folly Beach, South Carolina, at the Sand Dollar Social Club bar, a local bar. Luca Strobel, 25 years old, trans man, but whose ID says F or female. But he went into the men's restroom. There were no dividers between the urinals, and the stalls had no door locks. So he thought, I cannot use this room. So I'll go to the women's restroom because, after all, my ID says I'm female, and everyone is saying these days that I should be identifying as female.
He's got a little chin hair and things like that.
Well, he goes into the women's restroom. There's no one else in there. And a guy from the bartender, I think, the bar owner, came charging in and said, "You cannot be here, blah, 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 blah." And he says, "But my ID says female, and you're always telling me I'm biologically female, so what's your problem?"
They do this to butch lesbians, too.
All the time. And the bar owner just screamed at him, called the cops, and then lied to the cops. The cops abused him. He was charged as drunk, which he was not, and charged with trespassing when he was in the restroom that accorded with
Donald Trump wants him to use.
Yes. Well, I don't think Donald Trump wants him to use either one.
Well, as one right-wing rabbi said to me at a demonstration, I said, "What are people supposed to do when they have to go?" He said, "Wear diapers." That's what he said to me. I was shocked. All right. Shall we talk about Ed White?
Well, a couple of notes.
Okay.
The LGBTQ political clubs in New York are boycotting the mayor's
they
pride.
did. I wasn't even invited this year. I usually go. It's free food. We were not supposed to go because we were upset with the mayor.
Yeah.
But I didn't even get my invitation this year. I think it's mostly now just city employees.
Probably. Well, evidently the political clubs boycotted. And two trans teens and their parents and the ACLU are suing the state of Kansas for access to trans-affirming care. We'll follow that case.
So just late last night, we learned, we're taping on Wednesday, that the gay literary giant Edmund White has died at 85, survived by his husband, Michael Carroll. He'd been HIV positive since the 1980s and survived 2 major strokes in 2012 and a heart attack in 2014, but he has finally passed away. And of course, he's known for his autobiographical novels, A Boy's Own Story, The Beautiful Room is Empty, The Farewell Symphony, as well as States of Desire, which is a travelogue about pre-AIDS gay America. And he was the co-author with Dr. Charles Silverstein of The Joy of Gay Sex. And so he was a giant. He wrote nonfiction works about Jean Genet, Proust, Rimbaud. He was a co-founder of GMHC in 1981. He was there with Larry Kramer. The awards are endless, including from the French and Americans. He witnessed the Stonewall Rebellion in New York in 1969, and he wrote, "Up until that moment, we had all thought that homosexuality was a medical term. Suddenly, we saw that we could be a minority group with rights, a culture, an agenda." He was part of that Violet Quill group of gay writers, most of whom died of AIDS. Taught at Brown and Princeton. And should we run the clip of him getting an award from the National Book
When I
Award?
started submitting novels in the pre-Stonewall 1960s, my gay subject matter was offensive, especially since I didn't write about hustlers or criminals or drag queens, but rather about the middle-class guy sharing an office with you. The familiar is more threatening than the exotic. Years later, various editors would tell me that they'd been moved by my submissions, but hadn't dared to accept them lest their colleagues think they themselves were gay. In fact, my first published novel, Forgetting Elena, read gay only to someone with X-ray vision. My second, Nocturnes for the King of Naples, was damned in the New York Times Book Review for being too obviously gay. Explicitness, according to that critic, had eclipsed whatever small talent I might have had. It was only my fifth published book, A Boy's Own Story, that was favorably received. Harper's Queen magazine in England once declared me the most maligned man in America. Now that is no longer true, if it ever was.
Ed White probably wrote about sex more unapologetically than anyone in history.
Yeah. He was, as you say, he was a giant, but he lived a long life, and sorry to see him go.
Yes, indeed. All right, international news?
Yeah.
So, Hungary's been banned from having pride parades. They're going to do one anyway, and maybe they'll get arrested. But 70 members of the EU Parliament are planning to join them.
Yep, that's on June 28th, Saturday. In the UK, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has been barred from the Pride marches because he's regarded as anti-trans.
Well, 4 Pride marches have banned all parties from marching because they said you've let us down on the trans stuff. I mean, we got this terrible ruling, and you're just saying, yeah, trans women aren't women.
Air Canada put together an all LGBTQ, 2S LGBTQIA plus flight crew for a flight.
It's charming.
Yeah.
They're all gay, or they like, I have a gay son, I'm on the crew, this kind of stuff.
So the pilot's making an announcement about this before the plane takes off, and he's on the little mic, and he says to the passengers, we're going to treat you all equally, everybody's the same, we love everybody. Shantae, you stay.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
In the Netherlands, the right-wing government has collapsed, and so they're going to have elections, but probably not until October. And there's actually hope that some gay guy might get elected, but this is all far off.
Well, good news from South Korea, where they elected a center-left candidate as president over the very conservative incumbent. That was a surprise.
And a big kerfuffle about from World Boxing about...
oh, wait, aren't we going to do the Poland election?
Oh, yes, okay. Why do I have this
also,
out of order?
in a surprise, a right-winger was elected in Poland as the new president. Now, the more moderate, middle-of-the-road prime minister is still in charge, but the president has a lot of power.
This is an extreme blow to the movement, because they were the government, the elected government, was going to pass some pro-LGBTQ stuff, and now they're going to be blocked by this president.
All right, but sure, let's do World Boxing.
I'm sorry I missed that page there.
That's
okay.
All right. Well, you remember the Olympics. The Olympics, yes. And the boxers, the female boxers who were accused of actually being men or having too much testosterone.
Including by Donald Trump.
Yes. So World Boxing has mandated sex testing for these questionable women, I put all that in quotes, because Imani Khalif, who won the Olympic gold medal last year, is competing this week. And there are all sorts of rumors. Is she intersex? Does she meet the testosterone limits? Is she a woman? Is she not?
Now, they made
her chromosomes?
They made this announcement and they named Imani, but now they're apologizing for publicly naming her before doing a test.
Yeah, they're not backing down on the test, but they're apologizing.
But the International Olympic Committee has been standing by her.
Yeah, well, they set up standards a long time ago, and although they said each sport can set its own standards.
Look, there's been testing going on forever. I rember in the 60s they would test DNA and things like that.
German swimmers.
Yes, East German especially.
Yes, exactly.
All right, in Russia, a transgender journalist who joined the Ukrainian military has been sentenced to 20 years to a Russian penal colony.
In absentia.
Yes.
She is not in Russia,
Yes.
but she signed up. We've told you about her when she enlisted.
Sarah Ashton Cirillo.
She signed up as a military medic, so she should avoid going to Russia.
J.D. Vance was particularly on her case, and when what's his name? Biden was president, he wrote letters to the State Department.
What does he have to do with it?
He said, well, he thinks that
We shouldn't support Ukraine because they let a trans woman journalist sign up as a medic? Honest to
he
God.
questioned her American citizenship,
Ugh.
demanded information on, was
Go
if she
away.
was being compensating using American resources.
Yeah.
Well, Vance is a pig,
He is.
if you haven't noticed.
Yeah, I have noticed.
This is why when people say, "Oh, I can't wait till Trump goes," look who's behind him.
Well, no good choices.
right.
In the International Gay Rugby Union Cup has banned an Israeli team, Tel Aviv Ibex, because they claim there will be safety issues. Now, the team includes both Israelis and Palestinians.
Yeah.
But it's still too fraught for the International Gay Rugby Union. This is not international rugby. This is International Gay Rugby. Has no tolerance.
Yes, Peter Tatchell said the boycott of Israel was always intended to target Israeli institutions that are complicit with the dispossession of the Palestinian people, not progressive organizations that do not discriminate.
People are confused. But we were talking last week about Trump and the Kennedy Center and how he was saying, the terrible things they used to have, like lesbian Shakespeare, which didn't exist. But it turns out that Sir Ian McKellen has a role in something that's been going on for a while in London. The Trans What You Will Theatre Company does Shakespeare with trans, non-binary, and non-binary casts. That's the whole cast for these. On July 25th, are you going to be there then? No.
No, not until August.
They're doing 12th Night, and Sir Ian McKellen will introduce the performance.
12th Night has a lot of cross-dressing anyway.
Yes, exactly. He says,
and of course, when Shakespeare started, if he wrote those plays, women couldn't play women.
Right.
Men had to play women.
Right.
In Italy, a major victory for lesbian couples. The top court ruled that same-sex partners of women who conceive via in vitro fertilization have the right to be legally recognized as their children's parents.
Yeah, Italy's been arguing about surrogacy for same-sex couples, and men are not included in this because neither one of them can give birth. But with female couples, if one gives birth, the other one is now in Italy also considered a parent of the child.
Okay. AIDS news? You got any more international?
Not
Well,
beyond what we've already said.
Massive, devastating blow. The NIH has canceled future funding plans for HIV vaccine, the vaccine consortia. This is huge. NIH expects to be shifting its focus towards currently available approaches, as you said at the top of the show, to eliminate HIV/AIDS.
Insane. I don't know how they justify this to themselves, but they do. All right. Entertainment news?
Also, all funds have been terminated for the bird flu vaccine that Moderna was developing. So that's going to affect all of us. Could be the end of all of us. This is $175 million that they're cutting, so they won't have it when it hits.
Well, this is also, they could give big tax breaks to rich people and not cut the military. And
RFK Jr. has now forbidden researchers funded by NIH to report their results in peer-reviewed journals. Because then, somebody might find out,
Well, you said that last week. That I said, why would he do that? And you said, because they don't want to be peer-reviewed.
Right. All right. Okay. So I went to the star-studded dedication of Terrence McNally Way in the East Village. His husband, Broadway producer Tom Curtis, said, at a time in this country when the arts are under attack, books are being banned and LGBTQ rights are being eroded, honoring a fearless queer artist feels particularly meaningful. There were readings from Terrence's plays by Jonathan Groff, Donna Murphy, Francis Jew. They're Tony nominated, the latter two, and songs from others. There's Lin-Manuel Miranda with Tom and with Jonathan Groff, Terrence and that's Terrence's family. His brother Peter, who looks exactly like him. Who said, I grew up with him in Corpus Christi, Texas, him blasting opera to the whole neighborhood.
So that's at 9th Street and University Place.
There's Terrence. There's a nice picture of Terrence.
If you're looking for that street corner. Mike White is going back to Survivor.
Unbelievable. Mike White's the guy who does
White Lotus.
White Lotus.
Yes.
He's like bisexual, huh?
I think so. He was on it with he was on The Amazing Race with his father, who's the out gay.
Mel White.
Mel White, yes.
The famous, who used to work for Jerry Falwell and became an out gay preacher.
Well, now Mike's gone back. He's going back for the 50th season of Survivor, and he was asked, "What is it with you and these reality shows?" And he says, "Look, they have real drama from real people, as opposed to the narratives I do. The reality shows are much more interesting."
Okay. Janice Ian, Breaking the Silence. That documentary is going to be on PBS on June the 20th.
Yep.
We've told you about it before, and it'll be in the listings. And a documentary about Urvashi Vad, There Are Things to Do, will also be broadcast on WGBH in Boston a few times in June, with the premiere June 19th at 9 p.m. And we can actually link to that documentary in our email. So,
because it's streaming on pbs.org.
So, sign up for our email list. There's about 3,800 of you out there who are on it. Just go to our website, gayusatv.org. And a reminder again, this Friday, if you're seeing the show in time, ABC TV and Hulu are running the Charles Blow special about coming out late in life, Friday, June 6th at 8 o'clock Eastern.
And also coming up on June 16th, the documentary about Sally Ride called Sally. And that will air on Nat Geo, Disney Plus, and Hulu.
Right.
So
and
look
we're going to
for that.
link to a clip from that, from her life partner, Tam O'Shaughnessy.
Yeah.
Jason Collins, the NBA star, retired, married his longtime partner, Brunson Green, there.
They've been together for 10 years. Brunson is a film producer who produced The Help, among other
Octavia
things.
Spencer was at the wedding.
Yeah.
And anyway, then this hit play in London called "My Son's a Queer, but What Can You Do?" It's by a gay guy, and it's it's going to be at the New York City Center on June 14th and through the 12th through the 14th, and through the 15th. That'll be listed for us.
Do you ever watch the Reverie channel?
Huh?
It's a gay streaming network, which I have not come across it, but it's.
And you're the co-host of the Gay USA show?
Well, what about you? They're doing a new show called King of Drag with Murray Hill as the host, and a lot of it's like drag race competitions, whatever, but with drag kings instead of drag queens. On Reverie, and I did watch the new season of And Just Like That.
Yeah?
Yeah, season 3.
Wow.
Miranda having sex with Rosie O'Donnell as a virgin nun tourist. It's a little weird. But enough of that, because we're ending, but we will see you next week with more fun things.